Hello and welcome to the next project for the God's Refrigerator 2020 art retreat. Now this retreat is all about secret journaling, and we are looking at the folio, the letter slash secret journaling folio that we made back in our May retreat. And we've also made these little waterfall style booklets this time around. That was in our previous video. Now I wanted to, because I've been carrying my secret journaling folio around a fair bit, it started to get a little bit raggedy. And I wanted to make some sort of a stationery box to put it in, as well as this little booklet, maybe some pens, other little things that I collect. So kind of like a little memory box, stationery box, just a box to keep everything of the same theme in together. So I sort of walked around the supermarket with my other folio, which I really should have. So I walked around the supermarket with my secret letter folio in hand, looking for the perfect box, because I wanted a box that was not too thick in terms of the cardboard that it's made of, and not too flimsy. So I'm thinking food packaging box, and I'm walking around the supermarket looking for a box that would fit this as well as other things. So it had to be at least this size. Really hard to find when you're looking for a particular size box, but I finally came across chocolate chip cookies. Perfect, look at that, perfect. So I stood in the middle of the supermarket and went, bingo! Got a few looks, but that's okay, that's quite normal for my life. So this is the box I've chosen, and for a little while I kind of wondered what I was going to do with it. I thought I might cut the top off and have it as a box that everything can slide into sort of in an upright fashion. But then I thought, no, I want it to be sitting down, lying flat. So I'm going to move this camera. It was a little bit too close and we couldn't see. So I want to keep it flat and have a box that kind of opens up and has my little book sitting in it, and perhaps some other things. We'll work on that, because as usual, I am making this up as I go along. So who knows where we end up going. Now, I'm quite fortunate that this box seems to be constructed in such a way that is going to be very useful for me, because it looks like the lid will just come off here and has a second layer. And it looks like the sides are also flapped down with another flap up underneath. So I'm hoping that if I unstick the sides, then I'll be able to just lift the whole top off, and it will actually be a lift lid box, just as I was hoping to make anyway. So it will be minimal construction on my part if that's the case. I'm just running my finger under there. Look at that, so far perfect. Just to undo the top flaps. Oh, and this is going to be absolutely perfect for me, because this is what I wanted, a box that opens like this. Now look at that, there's all these little packets of chocolate chip cookies. What a shame. So we'll put those in the kitchen. One aside with my cup of tea. Busted. Okay, so this is my box. Now, I'm just having a look. If I put the lid on the inside, that would work well. If I kept it on the outside, that would work. Actually, I'm going to keep it on the outside, because if it's on the inside, it's going to cause problems if I have too many things inside the box, and then they'll sort of get stuck along the lid. So my lid will come on the outside, and I think what I might do is actually cut some cardstock a length to go around this corner, so that I don't have that opening on the corner there, if that makes sense. I'll just grab some cardstock. Now off camera I cut a couple of strips of just scrapbooking cardstock. I measured the width of the box, which happens to be 2 inches for me, and cut 2 strips so that they measure from the very end of one side, covering that whole side, around the corner. I scored at that point where it goes around the corner, and then another strip to do the other side, so that the entire side of this lid will be covered and it won't separate like this anymore. It will just be held together, and also it will cover this big hole here as well. So that is my plan, and I will now, using my Art Glitter brand glue, I will stick those on. Right, so here are the sides. So as you can see now, when I open it, it is one solid side, and it's from the inside. It's covered the holes and funny shape that it would otherwise have had. Now my plan is to cover this box with pattern paper, but not completely to the edges. So I want to have each side covered with paper just slightly smaller than the actual surface, and have the edging black. And to do that, and to give it just a nicer look on the edge and an easier to paint surface, and also because I want the edges to be more smooth and rounded rather than have this, you know, stark crease of the edges, I am going to put a layer of masking tape along every edge. I'm starting here and I'm folding it over so that the part that's actually painted black does not have that sharp edge of the box where the paint will crack. This will give it a smoother look and a smoother finish when we paint it. That's the plan anyway. So I'm just doing that to every single edge of the box, and I'm also going to do it to the outside edges, so it's not just where the box actually folds over, but also on the outsides. So it took a while, but I now have a box with every single edge has masking tape around it, including the inside. Now you don't have to do the inside like I have, but my thinking is that I want this to be something that lasts. So I'm trying to make it as strong and durable as possible. Now it was a little bit tricky doing all the inside edges, so don't do this when you're in a hurry. Do it quietly and calmly and slowly. Take your time and cover all those edges just to give you that nice smooth finish. Now what I'm going to do is grab some black paint. Oops. And I'm using my favorite Dina Wakley paints. And there is no need to paint the entire surface, because once again, I'm going to be covering it with paper. I just want the edges to be black. So I am just going to paint just around the edges. And I'm going to do that all the way around the box. The top, the bottom, the sides, and then I'm going to do the inside of the box as well. So once again, I won't bore you with the whole process, because once you've seen me do one edge, you've seen me do all of them. So this is what your box will look like once you've painted all the edges. So I've got all around the edge of the top, the sides, the bottom, and also I also did the insides because I plan to cover the insides as well. Now what I've done is I have off camera, because boring, I have cut some patterned paper just slightly smaller than all of the sides of the box. And what I've done is I have chosen paper from my Cosmos collection to coordinate with both of the journals that are going to be living in the box. So I have little long pieces for the sides and these two for the top and bottom. And then for inside the box, because this is a stationery box of sorts, I've actually used an old Kaisercraft collection, and I honestly cannot tell you what it's called. I think it's Pen and Ink. I think they're both from the Pen and Ink collection, and this is sort of like a library-ish kind of theme. And this one, which I really like, is a whole lot of postage stamps, or you know, the stamp at the post office. Postage rubber stamps. So that's going to go, that's going to go inside the lid, because that's the part that you'll see the most, and this will be inside the bottom of the box. So all I'm going to do is, and once again, I won't bore you with the whole process, but I will use a wet glue, I think, once again my Art Glitter brand, and I will use a wet glue to stick these on, because once again, oh no, I think I'll use this side. Oh yes, I'm glad I popped it over then. Oh yes, I think we'll use this side. What do we think? This side. Oh, I kind of like them both, to tell you the truth. Oh, I can't decide. I do like the colours on this, so I think I'm going to use this side. Hope I don't regret it once the glue's on, because I think I've mentioned before, this glue kind of sticks forever. If you stick something down with this glue, you better be sure that's where you want it. Speaking from experience. So I am just going to pop that on. So I have a pretty patterned cover, but still with a black border around the edge. And I'm going to do that to all the surfaces of the box. Now here is the completed box. I've stuck papers on all these surfaces, as you can see. The one on the bottom was, I cut a little bit too small, but I'm not too worried because it's the bottom, and I doubt I'm ever actually going to look at it because it will always be like this. But just for prettiness, I covered it anyway. And that is the inside. So what I'm going to do now, because I do want this to last, I know I've said this already, but I keep saying it over and over, I am going to cover it with a layer of Mod Podge just to seal it and make it stronger and stop the edges from chipping. So this is, you've probably worked out by now, not a project that you're going to pick up and complete in half hour, an hour, in one session. This is how I Mod Podge, I just squirt it all over. Yeah, this is not something that you will finish in one session. There's a lot of painting and leaving to dry. So you will be working on this, if you make it, over the course of the entire retreat, possibly finishing it off once the retreat is over. But as girls and guys who have been here before already know, and anybody who is new with us this month, you'll find out the event officially ends on Monday, the date that I've set it, but it does remain open. You can always come back and still read the posts and post things. So even though the actual official event is over, the event page, so to speak, remains open, I guess, forever. So if you don't get this finished over the course of the retreat, don't worry, because you can always come back and post it on the retreat page or in our group, God's Refrigerator, or come over to my personal profile, Georgia I Dreams. All my social media links will be below anyway. And so don't stress yourself, and don't do this when you're in a hurry or are feeling stressed or have stuff on, you know, that needs to get done, because you do need to sit down with a chunk of time, be left alone to get your separate pieces done. So I'm going to stop the camera now because you don't need to see me paint 1, 2, 3, 4, 27 surfaces. So basically just painting Mod Podge. I know it looks white, but it is the clear Mod Podge, and when it dries, it does go clear. So here is my finished Mod Podged box. I have painted all the outside sides with a layer of Mod Podge. The top is looking a little bit lumpy bumpy, if you can see that. That's because it hasn't quite finished drying. It was a lot worse, but I do know from experience that once it dries properly, it will come back to its smoothness. I haven't worried about Mod Podging the inside at this point. I think I'm going to leave it just like that. Truth be told, I do prefer the look of the matte paper to that texture, well, not texture, but that almost shiny. Even though this is the matte Mod Podge, it still does have a sort of plasticky feel to it. That's not a great way to describe it, but so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just decorate the outside just a little bit. I'm not going over the top, but I've just got a few little elements that I'd like to put onto the corner and the front of the box. And the first thing I want to do is I went through my Stamperia paper pad that this Cosmos paper comes from, and there was a page full of little tags with quotes and words. Here we go. Quotes and words on it, some in English, some in Spanish, and I did not really like any of the English ones. Well, not for this project anyway. None of them really seemed appropriate to me. So I started looking at the Spanish ones. I had no idea what they said, but I really liked the look of this one. And so I put it into I put it into Google Translate, as you do, and it translates as, if I can remember it now, only through the night does the morning arrive. And I thought, I like that. That is just perfect, beautiful. So I'm going to use this, but first of all, I want it to be matted around the outside with a darker color. And I'm not happy with it just being this paper. I want it to have more dimension and more thickness. So what I've done is I have cut a piece of chipboard, which is just from the sheet that comes at the back of a packet of scrapbooking paper. You'll have the same thing on the back of your sketchbooks and notebooks, those sorts of things. So it's that kind of flexible but sort of thick cardboard slash chipboard. And what I'm going to do is I am going to paint it with some dark blue. And I'm not even going to paint the entire piece of card because I know that my little quote is going to sit in the middle. So all I really need to do is paint around the outer edge. And looking at it, it's actually a little bit too bright for me. So I'm going to do a scary thing and bring in some black. Which of course, of all the paints that I use, it seems to be only the black or the red that I end up getting all over my fingers without even trying. So I'm going to mix in just a little tiny bit of black just to get that blue closer to a almost navy color, because I was not happy with that really, really bright. So that's better. Let's more to my liking. So I'm just painting around the edges, and I'm also going to paint that thin outer edge, because otherwise when you stick it down you'll be able to see the grey colour of the chipboard, which would annoy me a lot. So I've painted that as well. So what I need to do now is just to let it dry. I'm giving it a second coat as I go around. And once that is dry, I'll be able to stick my little quote tag in the center, and it will have a nice dark blue mat around the outside, and it will have a little bit of thickness and dimension, which will make it more interesting on the box. And so that little chipboard embellishment thing is finished, and I like it much better like this, but I still think it just looks a little bit stark just on the box like that, and I want to soften it up a little bit. So I've grabbed this piece of lace, and I'm thinking that it might be nice to have something. Sorry, I'm just sort of having a think, or maybe, no, all right, forget that. Yes, I'm thinking it might be nice to just soften it a little bit with some lace. And I am just having a bit of a think, a bit of a plan, or pretending there's a plan. There isn't really. If I just scrunch the lace underneath it, because I don't want it just flat. I'm trying to get a little bit of dimension happening. Okay, well, I know I want it about this big anyway. And I can't remember where I got this from. I think a friend might have given it to me. But I have little bits and pieces all over the place, and a big bag full of offcuts. And if I was to scrunch that up a bit and place my card on there, that would be kind of pretty. And I'm thinking what I might have to do is actually get out the sewing machine or the sewing needle, because it's just too hard at the moment to get out my sewing machine. I might get out the sewing needle and just sew that together before gluing it, because I don't think just gluing it will do the job for me. Now, I am such a cheater that I actually ended up using my little Tim Holtz tiny attacher, which is a tiny stapler, to staple the scrunchy bits together. Just because the stapler was here and the needle and thread are all over the place in another room, so it was quicker and easier. And I have glued it down. The glue is still drying, but that's okay. And I'm going to get some more glue onto the back of my little chipboard phrase. I'm going to town with the glue because I know it won't make contact with all the surfaces underneath because of the lumpiness. So I'm just putting glue all over it and just placing it there. And what I'm going to do is put something slightly heavy on top and let that dry. Now that is almost dry. It's still not quite there, but that's okay because that won't get in the way of the next thing I want to do. Now, in keeping with the decoration of my folio from May, and I know back then I was in two minds about whether or not to use flowers on it, because I was like, oh, it's a space theme, there aren't flowers in space, but I really like the color of these Graphic 45 blue flowers, especially the really dark blue, and I thought it went really well. So in keeping with that kind of theme, I am going to use more of the flowers. Oops. Somehow, somewhere. And I just tried to pick one up that was actually stuck onto the onto my folio. It's like, no, 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 you can't use that one. So I think I might use these three. They do look kind of pretty. And then I change my mind. Okay, what about here? Then I go, what if I did this? And that. No, I don't like that. What if I did that? No, I don't like that at all. Actually, I'm starting to think I like them in that corner maybe. No, I think this one. I know they're going to give me more trouble here, but I might trash that one. I think this is what I'm using. For now anyway. We might add to it over time as I find stuff that I like. I'm putting a gigantic glob of glue under there. Now the plus side of this is that I don't intend to have it travel with me, because this is the problem. One of the reasons I decided to make this box is because this little book has been traveling with me and it's getting a little bit raggedy, and one of the flowers at one point did come off. I had to glue it back on. So I needed somewhere to keep it safe. But whereas this travels with me a bit, as does my journaling Bible and all my other notebooks and diaries and planners, this won't be traveling. It will just sit somewhere. So I can put whatever I want on the outside without fear of it falling off or having major catastrophes. If I had this colour in that size, I'd be happy. But I don't. I might leave it at that for now. Could have been interesting. That's kind of interesting. Might stick that in. A bit of dab of glue under there. And there we go. These all came in the pack with the actual flowers. It does need something else. But this is too big. What if I cut this off? May or may not regret doing this. And I might just stick that under there. So after saying I was not going to put very much on here, I was going to keep it simple. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, and then we let it dry. And I will come back to the last little bit once this has dried, because I don't want the flowers falling off when I tip the box sideways. And that is the top of my box all dried. Now I'm just doing one final thing, or two final things, though I'm not sure where I'm putting the key yet. It might come here, there in the corner. Not sure yet. But I have this lock. Both the key and the lock come from Graphic 45 Staples packs. And I'm going to put the lock here on the side so it looks like you need to unlock the box. You don't need to, of course, but just because it will look pretty there. Now what I've done is I have marked off the halfway point so that I do have it right in the center, because I know me, I'll get ready. I'll be able to see that that 2mm off center difference if I don't center it properly. And I'm taking out the big guns and using the E6000 here, being a metallic element. It's a while since I used this. It's a little bit clogged up, but no, it's still good. It's still good. Always remember, use it in a well-ventilated space. You don't want to get high on E6000. And, oh dear, piece of scrap lace. There's a little bit big blob there. Okay, and I'm just going to center it there. Pop it down and leave it to dry. And here is my finished box. So I decided to stick the key here as part of this cluster, and I used the E6000 again, so it stuck really well. And there's the lock, and it's still a little bit stiff, but open it up, and I have put my little notebook from this retreat and my folio from May are both going to live in here, as well as other things as time goes on. And I might be adding a couple of extra special things to the inside of this box, but they will happen during the retreat. So if you want to see what I end up making to put in this box, it'll just be little add-ons, something. I don't quite know myself just yet, making this up as I go along, as I do. But if you want to see what I end up adding to the inside of the box, then come along to the retreat, which is run through my Facebook group, God's Refrigerator, or after the retreat, which ends on the 2nd, 3rd of August 2020. After that, I will be putting pictures of all of the projects plus links to these videos on all my social media, which are linked below. So come on over, say hello, and we'd love to see you give this a try and make a box of your own. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.